is 7:04, and so I will call the meeting of the Common Council of the City of Platteville to order. It's Tuesday, June 9th, and it's 7:04 p.m. And we are having this meeting via Zoom, and a call-in number, etc., was provided. So we will start, Candace, with roll call.
Ken Killian?
Here.
Robin Klein?
Here.
Isaac Shanley?
Here.
Eileen Nichols?
Here.
Kathy Kopp?
Here.
Jason Arts?
Here.
Barbara Doss?
Sure. Okay, so the first order of business on our agenda tonight is a special presentation. Now, generally we would have cake and all kinds of stuff, but that is not the case since we're in this interesting time. So I am hoping, but I do not know if Mr. Frederick is on the line. I have somebody here who has just a phone number. So I'm hoping that that's Mr. Frederick. Do we have a clue, Howard, what his number might be?
Yeah.
All right. Well, anyway, Jeff Frederick worked for the city of Platteville for 38 years, and he retired the 29th of May. So we have a proclamation recognizing Jeff Frederick's 38 years of outstanding service and dedication to the city of Platteville. And it goes as follows. Whereas Jeff Frederick has faithfully served the
picture. I'm at the meeting.
I don't know who we have talking. Whereas Jeff Frederick has faithfully served the city of Platteville since 1982, and whereas Jeff has shown his commitment to the city of Platteville by maintaining his water and wastewater operator licenses during that entire 38 years, and whereas Jeff has served loyally, serving as wastewater plant operator, lab technician, and over the last 3.5 years as wastewater treatment plant foreman, his focus on being on critical infrastructure, which has led to improvements and upgrades that will continue to serve the Platteville community for decades to come. And whereas Jeff has embodied the spirit of public service in faithfully, diligently, and honestly executing his duties, and whereas Jeff's professional talents have contributed to making the Platteville community a better place to live, work, and play, now therefore, I, Barbara Dawes, Common Council President of the City of Platteville, on behalf of the Common Council and city employees, both past and present, do hereby wish to express our sincere appreciation to Jeff Frederick for his dedication and service to the City of Platteville. Signed this 9th day of June in the year of 2020. And that would be the proclamation recognizing Jeff Frederick for his years of service at our wastewater treatment plant. So Howard, yeah, I don't know if you guys had any kind of little gathering of any type.
We had an informal one down there at the plant, but we're scheduling a more formal type of one later once things have calmed down a little bit.
All right, and so thank you, Howard, for reporting on that. And I'm sure that as that time comes, that you'll let other folks know. All right, so we'll move on to the next item on our agenda, which is consideration of the consent calendar. The following items may be approved on a single motion and vote due to their routine nature.
Leave.
I can't. All right. Someplace I need to mute people. I guess I'm going to have to start by muting all, or did whoever mute themselves?
I think you should mute all. I believe that was somebody that kind of hijacked the meeting. So perhaps if you just mute all.
All right, I have now muted all. And so now people will have to raise their hand in order to talk, or I will unmute council members so that you can talk. We have the following agenda items. Council minutes from May 26, 2020, the payment of bills, the financial report for May, appointments to boards and commissions, and tonight I have one, Jennifer Collins, to the Museum Board. Her term will begin July 1st of 2020, and it is for a 4-year term. Licenses, we have 1- and 2-year operator licenses, and we have our annual fermented malt beverage and intoxicated liquor license renewals. And then we have resolution 20-7 designating June 2020 as LGBTQ and Pride Month. So let me get around here and unmute council members to proceed with anybody who wants to pull something from the consent calendar, or anybody who wants to make a motion on the consent calendar. I think all council people should be unmuted at this point.
I'm trying to find a spot in my packet, but I would like to move to accept the consent calendar as presented, with the exception of the addition of the word flag under resolution 2017, and I think the last sentence of the resolution.
Except for the word flag.
It says, be it further resolved that to symbolize its decision, the Common Council authorizes the flying of the LGBTQ+ above City Hall during the month of June 2020.
The LT,
Word flag.
there is, does it say flag in there?
No,
So you want the word flag added?
correct.
Okay.
I would second that motion with that addition.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the consent calendar as printed with the addition of the word flag in the resolution designating June 2020 as LGBTQ and Pride Month, and flying that flag on City Hall. We'll vote. Oh, Candace, I have to
Nope.
unmute you. No, I've tried to.
There we go.
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
Killian,
Put it on there.
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
I'm not sure how that person is getting through. Shanley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Kopp,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Doss.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know where we're getting this interference tonight. Okay, the next item on our agenda is citizens' comments, observations, questions, if any. Please limit comments to no more than 5 minutes. So there is some place where you can, I guess, I don't know how to do this exactly when I've got everybody muted. So I guess I'm just going to go across my screen and ask when I see somebody's picture. Will Lesort, are you here to speak during citizens' comments, observations, and petitions, or during another time?
I am here to speak during the citizens' observations.
Okay,
Thank you for unmuting me and listening to my comments for a moment. I'm Dr. Will Lesor. I'm one of the faculty here at UW-Platteville in the CJ department. And I was just coming to the meeting to request that the council consider some of the immediate changes that have been proposed more nationally regarding policing practices. That would be some rather common sense proposals to address here in Platteville. Though we are absolutely not like larger cities or have some of the same needs as them, there are some basic ideas that would work in any sort of situation. The NAACP has proposed 5 general ideas, such as the ban on the use of knee holds and choke holds. I've also heard the addition of the ban of using knee holds on anywhere of the spine and head. Have a type of. Okay. Using each state's Open Records Act to require officer misconduct to be recorded and not shielded from the public. And I know that our city does have a citizen review board, the police and fire citizen or commission board, and using that to review public complaints. I just would strongly encourage, as someone who teaches in this subject and has read enough, but also just as a citizen of this town, to really try to address this sooner rather than later, and to really listen to the voices of both our community as well as the larger national conversation. Most recently in the news, I'll keep this brief, but the concept of defunding the police has been mentioned, which really is a terrible slogan. It's more of a reassessment of funds allocation and to stop asking the police to do every single job there is, from dog catcher to crisis counselor to frankly garbage pickup at times, and to let the police actually do their jobs and to thus fund other aspects of government in that process. So I just strongly encourage the city council to please consider that and to take action. Thank you.
Thank you, Will, and we'll note your request, and likely it will be forwarded to the city manager and the chief of police, as well as the police and fire commission. So thank you very much. I'm going to continue to try to go through here and see people and ask, and now I'm going to Wayne, I'm trying to unmute you. Wayne Woodars, would you like to speak during this time? Wayne?
No, I'm just here as an interested citizen, just to listen and gather information.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Knight?
I'm here as a citizen as well, just to gather some information about the parks and pools.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hey guys, I'm back.
I have no clue. Mr. Andy Barth?
Just here to listen.
Okay. Anna Pennington? Anna Pennington?
Just listening.
Okay. Jeffrey Ping?
Just dancing.
Marcus?
Hello.
Are you here for citizens' observations, comments, and petitions?
Yes.
Okay, could you identify who you are and give your address, please?
I am a turtle.
Adam? Adam,
Yeah,
did you catch that?
yeah, it seems like we have somebody, or this has happened in certain meetings where, because they are public, they can be somewhat, I want to say hijacked is the correct word, but essentially
Okay.
that seems to be what's going on.
Okay. All right, we have, okay, we also have tonight Lynette. Lynette, are you here for citizens' comments, observations, and petitions? Lynette? All right, I have no clue. Mickey?
Play Pokemon Go.
I wonder if this is the same person all the time.
Oh, you can see a few different names in the bottom. It's been 4 different people so far.
Yeah.
I can only see so many at a time on my screen.
It'd be
And
your
so-
bottom left.
Yeah, I don't get that, but I understand what you're saying. I have to go to a, okay, so let's see. Anna Ronnie. Christina, I believe you're here first. You're here for Sidewalks later? Okay. Tiana Gill. Tiana?
I'm just here to learn about the status of the pool for this summer.
Okay, thank you. Amy. Is this Amy Seabooth Wilson?
It is, and I'm here to talk or answer questions if they come up for the mural, and also talk about sidewalks.
Okay, that's who I thought it was. Laura Grossman.
We're just here to hear the status of the pool for the summer.
Okay. Samantha Flora.
Yes, yes.
Are you here for citizens' observations, comments, and petitions?
No, I'm just here to listen.
Okay. I believe I've made it through everybody that I see on my screen. And so I believe we're.
Question?
Yes, Ken?
Could a council member ask the question now?
Certainly. Would you like to speak during citizens' comments, observations, and petitions?
Yes. I have a question for Howard. Received this number of emails from this person at 1275 Sunset Drive. Would you update me as far as what's happening there and what's going to be done on correction of that? It sounds like it's a storm sewer that's leaking and the driveway is falling and the street is dropping also.
Howard, I think that you should probably update the whole council in a written memo rather than trying to do that here. I did get that email just today, and Ken, did you get your email just today? Did you get your email, Ken?
Yes, I got the whole thing, and I don't remember receiving that before, so that's why I wanted an update.
Okay, so let's get an update, and let's have a written update from you to all the council instead of just an off the cuff tonight. Okay, thank you, Howard.
Will do, thank you.
Okay. All right, so Ken, that'll be coming to you in email or in some other way. Okay, let's move on to reports from boards, commissions, plan commission. I have nothing to add. Isaac, do you have anything to add?
Nothing.
Okay, museum board, Eileen.
Not at this time, no.
Redevelopment authority board, you, Eileen.
No.
Historic preservation commission, Ken.
No addition.
Okay, in the packet, we had water and sewer financial reports, the airport financial report, and department progress reports. Any questions on any of those? Okay, then let's move into the action portion of our agenda. And I know that we have Brian Raymer here, and Brian, I have now tried to unmute you. You'll have to unmute yourself when the time comes. But first, we have resolutions authorizing general obligation bonds, public notices, and general obligation street improvement bonds. Nicola, are you going to be the person who does the introductions here?
Yes, so I can introduce our municipal advisor and just give you a brief introduction on these resolutions. So each year we have a CIP budget, and as part of our budget process, we decide certain projects to be funded through the issuance of bonds. And in this circumstance, our 2020 budget included funding of $1,137,850 through GO bonds for street reconstruction projects. And sometimes the bids come in low and we might reduce that amount, but in this case, staff is recommending funding the full $1,137,850 for the street reconstruction projects, and those projects are Market Street, Bradford Street, Irene Street, and the design phase of the Business Highway 151 Safety Improvement Project. So the total bond issue will be $1,190,000. And Brian Romer is here with Ehlers, and he will get into some more details about that bond issue.
Thank you, Nicola. Have the council members been provided the pre-sale report?
I believe it was in the packet.
If not, I can share my screen. I know I saw the resolutions in there.
Okay. Why don't you share your screen? That way we can make sure that everybody is able to see the pre-sale.
I think I need to be allowed to by Barbara.
Just share your screen?
Yep.
I'm sorry. This is something I don't know how to do. Adam? No, it says you can share.
Oh. Oh, there we go. Now it's letting me. All right. Should be able to see the pre-sale report now.
Actually, no. Well, we can see, or what I can see. There we go.
Okay. Okay, so I'm here for the 2020B general obligation bonds. That's set for right now $1.19 million. As Nicola indicated, this is part of sort of a larger picture in that you do capital improvement budgeting. In addition to that, you know, we've also updated. I don't know. It's seems there's some stars appearing on the screen. I hope that's not happening for you guys as well.
It is, but yeah.
Okay. That said, we've also had this as part of the 5-year financial management plan that we went through last year, and this is all something that, as well, the rating agency Standard & Poor's, who you're rated by, has been cued in on as well. So you'll be seeking a rating on this as we move forward. So that said, what you're doing tonight is essentially setting the sale. So what that means is that that'll move the process forward so that we can begin to prepare an official statement, as the method of sale that we're using for these bonds is soliciting competitive bids. And then the council will award the lowest true interest cost bid that comes in order to, in effect, lower the total cost of issuance and financing. So that being said, you know, Nicola went over the various street projects that this is financing, and the debt service is planned to be paid for by taxes.
I have a question. I have a question.
Yeah.
What?
I'm sorry. Who is talking?
Andy Dovey.
Andy, I'm sorry, but you'll need to raise your hand to talk. You don't, this is a presentation, and so if there are questions afterward, you can raise your hand to speak.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, Brian.
So that debt service is planned to be paid for by taxes.
Can you do something? Okay, wait.
Please.
That being said, this does hit your general obligation debt capacity limit of 5%, as you can see here in the authority section. And we have a chart on that later. The term of this issue will be 15 years. That was the plan in the financial management plan that was set forth last year, and still is the case this year. So you'll be paying principal on the bonds years 2024 through 2035. Interest is payable every 6 months, beginning on March 2021. And we have an amortization schedule later on as well. And then we have an option. You have an optional call at March 1st, 2029, or any date thereafter. So if this provides the city some flexibility in terms of wanting to either reduce debt service or restructure debt service at that time. These bonds will be bank qualified, similar to your bonds that were issued last year and in previous years, which just opens the market for who can bid on the bonds. You'll see here on the next page, we kind of go through the rating. Last year, Standard & Poor's had your rating at AA-, which is of high grade. We expect to see similar performance based on 2018 results. That rating was based on 2017 results.
I'm a ninja, boys.
You had high marks for strong liquidity as well as strong management practices, and that all speaks to your capital improvement budgeting and the financial management planning and the updates there too. So that said, should be looking for similar news when it comes to the rating. Like I said, this is a competitive sale, so we'll be soliciting those bids on sale day and then coming back to you on that day with the results and for your award if it's to your liking. That said, we have some write-up on premium pricing, in that we offer premium pricing structures. That is where if you have interest rates that come in that are higher than the actual current yields on the bond, that is, the person underwriting the bonds would like to have higher interest rates to open their market when they sell it on the secondary market. We offer that because it can offer an additional way to reduce your debt service ultimately, depending on the competitive bids that come in. So all the same as last year's bonds, the 2019A issue. On the next page, this just kind of walks through that you are looking at some other flexible options, in that we offer underwriters the ability to term up where they can combine several maturities. Many underwriters will do that of issues of this size in order to have some gained interest on the secondary market, meaning more players for them to sell to if they have maturities with higher principal amounts. So that's what term up means. We did this as well with the previous issues. We also looked at your existing debt to look how this will match, and you'll kind of see that on future pages here. And then the remaining of this document kind of goes through some other considerations as you look through the issuance, all kind of status quo with prior issues, in that you'll be subject to a continuing disclosure. You'll want to watch the investment you earn on the bond proceeds, and that the IRS will not want you to earn too much investment earnings on that, and that should you look to invest bond proceeds, there are investment advisors out there that can help you do so. On page 4, we have the other service providers plan to be a part of this debt issuance. Mainly, we're going to use bond counsel. Again, we'll recommend a paying agent if there's term bonds, and we can go through that on sale day should there be term bonds. And that the rating agency, as stated, was Standard & Poor's. The schedule is here on page 5. You can see, we're having our pre-sale review tonight. We'll plan to distribute the official statement July 6th, and we'll be scheduling the rating call before sale day, certainly. So that's to be determined on their availability. And then we're planning to sell the bonds July 14th. And then with the estimated closing date when you can expect to receive wire transfer of your funds would be July 30th. And then we have the various Ellers contacts should you be interested in gathering some more information. So in looking at the sizing page, the left column in the geotaxing and refunding bonds is actually the A issue that was previously discussed. That issue is still moving forward as it's a refunding. So we're kind of put on hold, waiting for interest rates to go down in the uncertain market conditions that March and April were. But for tonight, we're going to be focusing on the right column here, these tax exempt GO or the 2020B issue. So these are for the street projects, and you can see then we have our total project needs at 1.13 million. The various issuance expenses, our fees that would be for the issue, and then bond counsel and the other various players that we've discussed. So this said, you'll have your total issuance expenses, and then we've included some interest in that, throughout construction, while you're holding those proceeds, you are allowed to earn interest. So you may earn a small amount of interest on that, which we have estimated. And then ultimately you're rounding in that when they sell these bonds.
Pancakes? No, Mom, I don't want any pancakes. Go away.
But please, they're homemade from the chickens.
Like a kid.
And then the rounding just gets you to $5,000 blocks, which is what the when you issue debt, underwriters set that standard of having $5,000 blocks. So this rounding actually just goes straight to your debt service fund, or to the construction fund as you wish. Looking on page 7, the right side here in the middle, where we're looking at our general obligation bonds and the 1.19 million, that's what we're talking about tonight. So this debt is this column is the amortization schedule and your principal maturities that we forecasted. And the reason it's structured in such a manner is that we can structure it around your existing debt. And by doing so, you can therefore try to project and make sure that the levy that's responsible for debt service can go down as much as possible year over year. So this is done based off of an equalized value projection, and that's starting on the left side of this chart. So you've probably seen these before in last year's issuances and the financial management planning efforts. But we look at historical equalized values of the city and then take a projection forward at a certain discount factor. Here we got just about 1% if you look at the change in equalized value projections, with some additional TID closures. We're in 2026, so you'll see that jump here of the 7% jump in 2026, and that's due to a TID closure. So with that said, we've structured these 2020B issue around your existing debt in order to kind of look to control that net debt service levy. And then on the far right, probably the most important thing, what's the impact on residents? And we have taxes on a $170,000 home. You can also just look at the debt service tax rate and apply that to any variety. So that's per thousand. Apply that to various ranges of homes if you'd like, but chosen the 170 as is used in our previous financial planning efforts. The next page looks at your debt capacity that I briefly touched on in the narrative section. In looking at this, it's important to note, I think, this bottom chart just kind of says it all. So if you could avoid the stars and just kind of look straight at the debt capacity chart, you'll see that the total debt limit is set by this blue line at the top. The city has a policy to be below 70% of the debt limit. And this is seen as a strength in the Standard & Poor's rating. You can look at last year's rating report, and they do point that out in the strong management practices. So they like to see that you've limited yourselves below the statutory limit. And with that, we have your actual principal outstanding. And so this is shown with both the 2020A, the refunding bonds, and then the issue we're talking about tonight, 2020B bonds, or the 1.19 million. So we're looking at both of those in this chart here, and then that debt service. As you reach maturity, obviously you have lower principal outstanding. So you can see that percent of debt limit go down in the far right column here, and then you'll see your residual capacity beyond that. So that'll increase as your debt amortizes. So with that said, obviously the ability to take on new debt, and that'll kind of go hand in hand with future, financial planning efforts. So with that said, the last chart I have here is just a look of the previous year bond indices, and suffice to say that interest rates have dropped down. We've had a little fun here in March and April, you'll notice, with some nice W's and M's. But that said, we are reaching a point of market stabilization. We think it's a great time to be out in the market. You can look at the last sales for the last 30 days, and certainly see some favorable efforts, even in non-rated situations. We had a recent sale of just about 1.2% in total interest costs, so which is astonishing. So it's good to see that the rates have come down and that they're stabilizing. So with that said, I'll take any questions that you may have or inquiries.
Okay, I'll start around. Ken, do you have any questions of Brian or Nicola? Ken?
Yes, mine goes back to the first page, the beginning. It says in the first sentence there that our amount wanted is $1,137,850, and then next little paragraph says we're going to borrow $1,190,000. Is $52,150 for the bond issue?
Yes, that's the issue costs with some rounding.
Correct.
Okay, so we weren't told that at the beginning. Why wasn't that included in with the $1,137,000 way back in the beginning? You didn't know?
When we perform the budget analysis, when we do the budgeted CIP, and then when we get the bids, those are based on the actual cost of the project, including design. But we don't budget the cost of the issue. That's something that we can consider doing, but it's not something that we've done historically.
I wasn't quite clear on it. Thank you.
Okay, Jason, do you have any questions?
No further questions right now.
Eileen, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Isaac, questions?
No questions.
Kathy, questions?
No questions at this time.
Robin, do you have any questions?
I do not have a question.
Okay, then the order would be, I believe as I look at this, the order would be first an initial resolution 20-14.
That's correct.
20-14, general obligation bonds. I see two people with their hands up. Christina, did you have a question here? Christina?
Yes, yes, yes.
Do you have a question on this?
You might have to unmute her.
Pardon?
You might have to unmute her. It looks like she can't unmute herself.
I've unmuted her.
Can't hear her.
I have attempted to unmute her.
Can you hear me?
Now I can hear Christina.
Okay, my question is that if it says on the agenda that this amount is not to exceed, but we haven't talked about the Business 151 sidewalk project. And so there could be cost implications there. And so I'm just concerned that we're putting the cart before the horse.
Adam?
I think Howard might be able to speak to that.
One of the two.
Yeah, so these projects are obviously not for the Business 151 project. These are for the 2020 street improvement projects that we're doing this year. So this borrowing is for the work that already is being done in 2020. So that 2021 would be the next borrowing we would be doing in 2021.
This does include just the design phase of the Highway 151 project, but I'm not sure if that would be impacted at all by the sidewalk, and maybe Howard could speak to that.
Mm-hmm.
If we decided to do additional sidewalk as part of the Business 151 project included in the state portion of the project, then it would impact the design portion of that. But if we decided to do sidewalk as a separate contract in 2021 outside of the HSIP project, then it would be part of any 2021 borrowing that we might do.
Okay, so this has not, this is for design this year, does not, and for the projects that are ongoing that we see every day. So I think
Can
that.
I ask a question? I think I just.
I don't know how you can ask a question. I just muted you again.
Oh, me? I'm Robin.
Oh, Robin, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay. I thought what I heard Howard say was that if we want to include the design for the sidewalks, that would be part of this. Is that what I heard or not?
If we decided that we wanted to include design of sidewalks as part of the DOT project itself, then that amount could be added to this amount, because this 1.137 includes the design portion of the contract only. Now, if we decided to do it as a separate contract next year outside of the DOT's contract, then it would not be impacted. This would not be impacted.
But to Christina's point, I hear that we need to make another decision before I'm comfortable going forward on this amount. Is that, how do we change this amount? I mean, I think Christina's point is a good one.
So I guess my recommendation or my thought process would be, because this bonding is linked to multiple projects, if there would be an extension, if the decision is made to do something different and the cost would be more than this, that project more than likely will not occur either until 2021. So when we would do the 2021 borrowing, we then would have to loop in that additional cost into that new borrowing. So that would be the recommendation I would make, is if the decision is that we want to move forward with above and beyond what was originally budgeted for the Business 151, and you want to go above and beyond, we should tack it onto a 2021 borrowing.
So we're talking about design phase. So I guess that's where I'm nervous. We're not talking about actually getting it taken care of, but design phase only happens once.
Right, so if you're gonna have additional design cost, that at this point in time, you don't know what that cost is going to be. If we figure that out, essentially, we have a resolution that allows us to essentially front that cost first and then go back and recoup it through a borrowing. So in essence, without knowing what that cost is, we're gonna hold up a bunch of other projects, which I don't think we wanna do. So if it would be, whatever decision the council makes, we'll then have to kind of plan accordingly in how we attack that.
Okay.
Excuse me, could you please load in my friend Rarish? He wants to join the meeting. Thank you.
I have no idea how this is coming about because everybody is muted except council members. Okay, so folks, when you hear other people talking, I don't know where they are from because everybody else is muted.
Barb? I have a question.
Eileen?
We have three motions. Are they all to be made as one motion, or do we need three separate motions?
I think we're going to take three separate motions since there are three resolutions.
Okay.
I think that's the way we've done that in the past. So we have the initial resolution authorizing PO bonds in the amount not to exceed 1.19 million for street improvement projects, the majority of which are ongoing street improvement projects. Now the streets are dug up, and some design. So do I hear a motion on resolution 20-14?
I so move.
Okay, we have a motion by Ken.
I'll second.
And a second by Eileen to approve resolution 20-14, authorizing GO bonds in the amount not to exceed 1.19 million for street improvements. Candace will vote.
Killian,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Hanley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Doss.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next is resolution 20-15, directing the publication of the notice to the electors relating to this bond issue. Do I hear a motion on that?
I so move.
Okay.
Second.
And a second to
Please load in my
authorize
friend Rarish, please.
resolution directing publication of notice to electors. We'll vote.
Killian,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Hanley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Pop,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Doss.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And third, we have resolution 20-16, providing the sale of 1.190 million in GO Street Improvement Bond Series 2020-B. Do I have a motion?
I would move to approve.
Move to approve by Eileen. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Second by Killian. Candace will vote.
Killian,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Hanley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Doss.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And Brian, thank you for attending tonight. I know that you probably have other things you want to do, and we will not be offended if you leave the meeting.
Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Okay. Let us move then on to item D on our agenda, which is an intergovernmental agreement. This is the transit mural on Hickory Street by Olsvik Hall. And I believe that the person presenting on this is Howard.
Yes, thank you. The University of Wisconsin Platteville art class has developed a mural depicting a transit theme, and they want to paint it on Hickory Street at the crosswalk to Olsvik Hall. We've looked it up. It is legal to do a mural or other art as long as the white painted lines are there. The class worked with our transportation committee, and they've selected a mural, and that mural is attached in the packet. It depicts the many modes of transportation that we have here in Platteville. The question for the Common Council is whether to allow a mural to be painted on a city street. The committee has reviewed a number of designs, made suggestions, and has gone through all that process. We would suggest, if allowed in the future, that an appropriate committee approve the design and then come to you for final approval. One of the discussion items from the meeting last time was to draft an intergovernmental agreement regarding the responsibilities for this mural, and I have attached a draft of that intergovernmental agreement outlining the responsibilities of the University of Wisconsin-Platteville and the city regarding this mural, if it is so approved. And so basically staff is recommending the approval to include the intergovernmental agreement.
Okay, I believe that Amy was here also to answer any questions that anyone might have. So I will unmute Amy at the moment. And then I will start the once around with council members asking if you have any questions. So list, Ken, questions on the mural?
I have no questions on it. I was curious as to where the money will come from for the University of Wisconsin-Platteville. I read in the paper and hear that they're short on funding for the university system. So I don't believe it's a good use of funding to spend this money.
Okay, well, that would be a university decision, not ours, but thank you for expressing your opinion. Jason,
No questions.
comments? Eileen, questions or comments?
No questions.
Isaac, questions or comments?
No questions or comments.
Kathy, questions or comments?
No questions.
Robin, questions or comments?
Just clarification, has this resolution of understanding, sorry, I'm missing the word, been run by the university yet? And if they don't accept it as presented, will it come back to us, or will you negotiate that separately?
Amy?
Amy, do you want to speak to that, please?
Yeah, we've okayed it internally with all the people that needed to look at it.
Okay.
Okay, so the answer to that question is yes. So we have a intergovernmental agreement about a transit mural on Hickory Street. Is there action to be taken? Do I hear any motions?
I move to approve the proposed mural to be painted at the expense of the University of Wisconsin-Platteville at the mid-block crosswalk on Hickory Street between Pine and Main Streets at Olsvik Hall with an intergovernmental agreement to be signed by the city manager.
Second.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion by Jason and a second. I believe I heard Robin first. So we will vote. Candace?
Killian?
No.
Klein?
Yes.
Shanley?
Yes.
Nichols?
Yes.
Kopp? Yes.
Arts? Yes.
Doss?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have sidewalks on Business Highway 151 and the whole project on 151. So
Okay.
Howard.
Yes, thank you. We have this highway safety project on Business Highway 151 from Staley Avenue to Insight Drive. It's a 90-10 funded project where the federal contribution is capped at 90% of the 1.8 million. 10% of that is funded locally, and then anything above the 1.8 million would need to be funded locally. The project would make this section into a 3-lane road with a center left turn lane. The major intersections would still have their dedicated left turn lanes. It improves pedestrian accommodations with a crosswalk at Staley Avenue. It improves bicycle accommodations from Staley to Water with a wide shoulder lane, gutter pan. It improves the Water Street intersection with pedestrian signals, accessibility and connections to the David Caney Roundtree Branch Trail. It includes installation of new sidewalk on the north side of Business 151 from Water to Ellen in front of Walgreens. It improves pedestrian and bicycle accommodations from the David Caney Roundtree Branch Trail at the Novus Napa driveway east to East Side Road with a shared use trail. It improves the intersection at East Side Road with pedestrian signals. When we add all of these items up, originally we had intended to replace signals at East Side Road and Mineral Street with monotubes, and then additional items such as retaining walls and drainage tubes and things like that for the trail, and other assorted costs have increased the costs by an estimated $500,000. Because of this over budget projection, I have already asked DOT and IIW to identify cost savings measures. One is the use of trombone arms versus monotube at the East Side Road Mineral Street intersection, and that will save $60,000 to $70,000. The idea here, we have trombone arms there at Mineral Street already. The idea is that DOT wants to get away from the horizontal configuration of traffic signals and go to the more vertical configuration, and that's what those monotubes are for. It's required in certain areas, but suggested and not required in others. And at this intersection, it's a suggestion and not a requirement. So we're backing that off to try to save money, but it only gets us part way. Now, getting to the rest of the sidewalk issue here, the Safe Routes Committee reviewed the plans and noted that businesses along the south side of Business 151 from Water Street to Valley Road and the bridge there by Valley Road do not have a sidewalk and do not have a connection to the David Caney Roundtree Branch Trail. They note this is the opportune time to provide that access to these businesses. If it does not happen now, it will most likely be many years before there will be another chance to do so. When the commercial development at the southeast corner of Water and Business 151, where Dunkin' Donuts is, was approved, council approved it with the condition that the owner install sidewalks at their cost when directed by the council. The other 3 parcels between this one and Valley Road have no such agreement. Since a sidewalk would be placed in the city-owned right-of-way, we are within our rights to place a sidewalk there. We have authority to impose special assessments, but our past practice is that we do not do so. If we do this outside of the DOT contracts, we figure that the portion across those other 3 properties would be roughly $60,000. Because of state involvement and everything else, we think that if we added it to the federal project, it would cost an additional 25%. So what we have are a number of options. Option 1 is do nothing, in which case people will still walk along the sides of the roads. They'll walk through parking lots. They'll have a hard time getting to those businesses safely. And it probably won't happen for another 20 years if we decide to do nothing. Option 2 would be to install the sidewalk, direct the owner of the Dunkin' Donuts lot to pay for its sidewalk. the city fund the rest from general fund taxes. If we do that with the project, it's about 75,000. If we do that separately after the project is done, we can probably do it a little bit more economically at about 60,000. Option 3 would be to install the sidewalk across the Dunkin' Donuts lot only and provide a design for future sidewalk across the other properties. The current DOT project, all they're doing in this area is doing a thin overlay and moving on. So they're really not designing for a sidewalk at this point. So we would either have to design it separately or add it to the contract for them to design it only. I do not have a cost estimate on that. The option 4 would be to install the sidewalk and then impose special assessments. Staff is recommending installation of as much sidewalk as can be funded. The preferred option would be option 2 with the project separate from the DOT.
Okay, I'm going to go around and ask council members if they have any questions of Howard, and then I will take any public statements in favor or against. So Jason, do you have any specific questions of Howard?
The only thing is in terms of time frame, if we do go with option 2, but we make it separate from the DOT project, how soon after would we be able to do our sidewalk project?
I think we could still get it done within the calendar year. The work that they need to do will take a lot of the calendar year, but I think that it can be done in late fall.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Eileen, any questions of Howard?
No, no questions.
Robin, any questions of Howard?
I think Howard addressed my questions and then Jason kind of put a point on it, so I'm good.
Kathy, any questions of Howard about the sidewalk here?
Not on this section, not now.
Ken, any questions of Howard on this sidewalk?
Well, I have a comment about it. Dunkin' Donuts is being required to pay for their sidewalk. And the other ones, supposedly the city will pick up the cost for the other sidewalks for the 3 of them. So when you look at that, to me, that doesn't appear to be fair for Dunkin' Donuts. Just because they signed up to say, well, we'll put in our sidewalk. What about the other 3? You know, how are you going to make this fair? It's not, to me, it's not fair the way it's going to be done, because the city is supposedly going to pay for the sidewalks for the 3. We could do special assessment. My recommendation would be doing a special assessment for the 3, and that makes it fair to Dunkin' Donuts.
Isaac, any questions or comments for Howard?
Nope, not at this time.
Okay, there are several people in the audience who may want to speak either in favor or against or whatever. So Christina, your turn.
Thanks. I'm Christina Fields, 945 7th Avenue. I'm also the chair of the Community Safe Routes Committee. And we have been working as a group and with the city for the last 13 years on talking about this project, really. I mean, our goal with Community Safe Routes is to provide non-motorized ways to connect people with places. So all families, students, residents, visitors, with our great businesses here in Platteville, and this project is a perfect example of it. This sidewalk was identified in the 2008 approved Safe Routes to School plan, and we're finally at the moment where the sidewalk can go in.
And so it's just a great opportunity to provide a non-motorized access for people to access these great businesses along the corridor. And I just believe that while it appears there might be a minimal cost savings to wait, why wait when it's going to make more sense to do it with the project construction? So I just think it's the safest way is to do it now. I think if we don't do it now, we're going to have people going along the north side and cutting across the street to get to these businesses, because there won't be any shoulder left for anyone to walk on. There's no all-weather, year-round access, sidewalk access or trail access to these businesses. I just feel like this is good design. This is what we do is we when businesses or projects come in, we include items like this with the design. It's the most efficient and safe way to do it so that it's all built together and it's done correctly. So I just encourage council to support the sidewalks and their installation and construction with the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Others who want to speak on the sidewalk. Christina managed to raise her hand so that I would know she wanted to speak on sidewalks. Is there anyone else who will? You have raised your hand.
Thank you. Also, I forgot to mention, I'm at 630 North Water Street.
Okay.
I actually more had a question of winter access and who would be responsible for snow removal to ensure universal access, especially for those with special needs.
My belief is that in this particular case, it would be the person who owns the sidewalk or who has the sidewalk in front of their building, just like it is for a home. Howard, am I right on that?
Correct. Past practice is a sidewalk is shoveled by the adjoining property owner.
Okay, Amy, you had asked to speak on this. I see your hand raised.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to say, as a citizen, I'm Amy Seaboth Wilson, 555 North Water Street, that, like Christina said, this has been a topic we've discussed for over a decade, and having sidewalks connecting our residential areas to a fairly popular commercial strip in town would be really advantageous. I myself walk out to get ice cream with my young boys fairly often on that strip, and it would be really nice to take advantage of this moment in time to make that connectivity finally happen.
Thank you, Amy. I see no other hands raised, so I'm going to assume that there are no other people who want to express their opinion that are citizens. So, council members, Jason, any further questions?
No further questions.
Eileen?
No.
Isaac?
Nope.
Kathy?
Yes, I do have a question. Maybe directed to Howard. The affected businesses on the south side of 151, has somebody met with them so that they understand that this is coming potentially?
We did not do one-on-one meetings, sent letters to the property owners and the business renters for those strip properties. I did have one conversation with one of the property owners who was opposed to installing sidewalk at this location, probably for concerns of winter maintenance and things like that, and concerns over development of other properties.
Okay. Ken, any further questions?
Well, I'll comment. I'm in favor of the sidewalks, but as I said before, I don't favor the method as far as payment. Precedent has been set here as far as Dunkin' Donuts paying and the other people are not paying. Thank you.
Robin, did I ask you if you had any further questions?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, I guess I'm just considering this being some sort of precedent for the area out by Menards and those business fronts without a sidewalk. So I'm hearing Ken's comments, but I feel like that speaks to what are we going to do on the next project. So
I will make a comment on that. In more recent items before the Plan Commission, it has been more of a rule to require sidewalks or to put this rider on a contract that says, yeah, there's no sidewalk there yet, but if there's a sidewalk that goes in, you really should be putting the sidewalk in now. We understand you're opposed to putting it in now because you're the only one. However, if a sidewalk is constructed, then you need to pay for it. So that was actually a discussion with that owner, with that property owner and developer when the property was developed. And if you'll note, there is a sidewalk by McDonald's along Business Highway 151. And that sidewalk stretches in front of Sherwin-Williams because when those properties were developed, they were required to put in sidewalk. And there is a sidewalk on the north side all the way along by Menards. So there is a sidewalk there too. So I think that in the past, I'm going to say 10 years, that there has been more, well, Christina said it's been 13 since the Safe Routes Committee. And I would say since we've had a Community Safe Routes Committee, it has become more the rule than the exception to either require sidewalks or put this additional note on the development plan that says, yeah, you may not have to do it now, but when the time comes, you're going to have to do it. And yeah, Ken, it seems unfair, but I guess, you know, not everybody developed in 1970.
No, but you could make it a special assessment.
That's true. Good. Okay, folks, we have sidewalks on Business Highway 151. Oh, Howard, I did have one additional question, and it's not about the sidewalks. You said that there was some cost decrease in the $500,000 overage on the 1.8 million of between 60 and 70,000 for trombone arms rather than monotubes. Can we expect to see more?
We're working through some of that right now. There are what I would consider relatively small amounts, $3,000, $5,000 compared to the 500,000 seems insignificant, but you know, hopefully they add up into real money, as Senator Proxmire might say. And we're looking at all those items as we go.
Okay. Council members, are you?
Barb, I do have one more question. The sidewalk that is going in front of Dunkin' Donuts, is that cost to be paid in 1 year by the business, or can that be paid over a number of years? Does anybody have an answer for that?
Well, years ago, it used to be paid for curb and gutter in about 6, 7 years. That's what I had to do. It wasn't free.
I guess that would be up to Howard and Adam to look at past practice when those things have happened. It's not unusual for those payments to be stretched over 2 or 3 years.
Okay, thanks.
That point as well. I mean, I think it's common knowledge that they've lost a tenant in that building. So it does seem that it's a hard time to put that on them. So if we can accommodate and stretch that out, that probably would be a bit of grace.
Okay. All right, folks, are you ready to take any action?
I'd make a motion. Make a motion to approve, to approve option number 2 for the installation of sidewalks on the south side of Business 151 from Water Street to Valley Road.
And do you have does that consideration include doing it with the project or doing it separate? The 75,000 or the 60,000?
To save money, I would do it with separate to save money.
Okay. So
Second.
we have a motion and a second to install these to have the sidewalk installation done as a separate contract, but at the same time as the project on the highway improvement project. So Candace will vote.
Whose name was called?
Killian?
She's just getting herself unmuted, I think.
Okay, I vote yes.
Klein?
Yes.
Shanley?
Yes.
Nichols?
Yes.
Cop?
Yes.
Arts?
Yes.
Doss?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is the municipal pool and recreation programming. So let's see if I can find Luke. There we go. Luke, you are unmuted.
All right. Adam, I didn't know if did you want to start this or do you want me to?
Yeah, Luke and Adam, you can tag team.
I'll let you start and then I'll finish right after you.
Okay. So we really have 3 items wrapped into one. And I guess we'll just start with the first one, which is recreation programming. For recreation programming, we've currently postponed all of our programs with a tentative plan to resume with some of our programs starting in July. The programs that would be resuming would be our soccer programming for U7, U9, and U11, our tennis camp, and then co-ed softball, men's softball, co-ed sand volleyball, women's sand volleyball, and co-ed pickleball would be the city-run programs looking to resume at that July date. We would, with that in mind, if the council does approve resuming programming, extend our registration deadline up until June 19th, which would be about a little over 2 weeks from now. With some notification that we would still be trying to follow as best as possible the Badger Bounce Back program. So while we're in phase 1 for a contact sport like soccer, our focus would remain on individual skills while still trying to maintain social distancing as best as possible. If we were to get into a phase 2 of the Badger Bounce Back program, at that time we would, depending how much time is left in our season, would consider resuming with games at that time for like a contact sport like soccer. For our adult programming, it is a little less contact, so we would have go right into team sports, so volleyball and baseball, or softball rather, playing games just with making sure we're using hand sanitizer and social distancing as best as possible. We do also maintain lists for all of our teams, so if we were needing contact tracing, we would be able to go about providing that information to everyone. Really, I think that's kind of the basics for recreation programming. I don't know if we want to.
Let's stop there.
Yeah.
We're going to stop one at a time. So, Adam, do you have anything to add about recreation programming?
A little bit. So obviously on the league call today, with all of the other municipalities, this was definitely a very discussed topic. And what Luke essentially and the staff is proposing is pretty much in line with what the majority of other municipalities are doing, is opening up their recreation programming, with very much precaution, and trying to, do the best they can with social distancing and with, hand sanitizing and limitations. But everything, I heard from the majority of municipalities is they are recommending the same kind of position that staff, as Luke and the recreation staff has put together, is a very, similar approach that all municipalities seem to kind of be going down that road.
Okay, let us have then a discussion about programming. And so again, Luke, I don't think you gave us I can't find in mine anyway. You said that it would be U7, U9, and U11?
That's correct.
Soccer. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Tennis, correct?
Correct.
Because I don't see these listed other than you're verbalizing them. So I'm trying to.
Yeah. Within the report, it's listed the opposite way. It's listed as which programs would be excluded. But I can just go over it quick one more time. Again, you mentioned soccer, U7, U9, U11, tennis, which is a camp program, co-ed softball, men's softball, co-ed sand volleyball, women's sand volleyball, and co-ed pickleball would be the programs that are run by the city that would be resuming. That would exclude golf, which was a request from our partner. They are not interested in holding a golf program this year. 3-on-3 basketball would not be run because we're uncertain on the facility space at the school district. And the same thing with gymnastics would not run because of the uncertainty with facility use at the school district.
And U5 and U14 soccer.
I'm sorry. Yes, so U5, I don't know why I didn't mention U5. U5 soccer would resume. That was clearly just a mistake on my part as I was going through it in my head. Would be in place. U14, however, would not. Traditionally, that is a traveling team, which competes against other communities. Many of those communities will not be having teams this year. In addition to that, we don't feel that traveling teams would be a priority at this time.
And you would limit participation to 10 people per team?
Roughly 10 people per team. We're trying to stay within those guidelines, recognizing that, you know, the difference between 10 and 11 is, you know, that one additional person. I don't view it as a hard deadline or a hard limit, but as much as possible, trying to stay within that 10-person restriction.
Okay, and did you tell us what kind of information you would provide to program participants and the parents? And would there be sign-offs? Tell us about enrollment and...
Sure. Well, our existing enrollment does have a number of waivers where the individual assumes all risks with recreational activities. In addition to that, we would be providing additional information, essentially a flyer to each program participant, family, with any new guidelines that would be in place, and it changes by sport. Each sport has, basically, you can find, like, I think you viewed the Little League one, but each sport has its own individual things where there's recommendations based on the CDC, state health departments, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, where there's certain recommendations they have, whether that is that they're asking parents to just drop off their children, no carpooling, no sharing of bottles, you know, are some of the common ones that would be throughout most of the programs anyway. But each sport will have its kind of own list of regulations.
And those would, of course, you'll make those available on the city website so that it's very obvious that we've communicated this, or that if people didn't get the flyer, that it's available to them.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Discussion on this programming, recreational programming. Jason, questions, comments, or concerns?
I think my only thing was just kind of knowing what everything's going to look like in terms of like spectators and all that. But it sounds like, Luke, you're kind of going off of CDC recommendations in terms of what they've laid out for some of that.
Yeah, I've attended several of the CDC call-in sessions, and there's individual ones for each sport. So it's a pretty long list of, you know, various restrictions, but, you know, it really boils down to, you know, social distancing is the main thing they're still pushing, and then having the ability to contact trace, you know, if there is an issue. Seems to be for sports is the primary thing. So, you know, like I said, soccer is probably the main concern, because in a soccer game, you're not social distancing, you're sharing the same ball. So there's a focus on individual skill building versus going into teams right away.
Okay.
Okay. Isaac, questions, comments, concerns?
No, Luke just answered them.
Eileen, questions, comments, or concerns?
No, I think they've all been answered.
Robin,
Nope, nothing right now.
questions, comments, or concerns? Kathy?
Just a quick question. Luke, have you had any feedback about opening the playgrounds? Has there been any issues reported on that?
I have not. I've seen a number of people using them, and I think everyone is excited. We'll kind of talk about that next in terms of that's kind of the next issue. But yeah.
Okay. No other questions then?
Okay, Ken?
No comments.
Okay, I guess we could take, would there be a decision to take action on this particular programming issue then at this time? Does anybody want to propose any kind of action?
I would move to allow the Recreation Department to resume in-person programming starting in July with the staff creating new safety guidelines based on the recommendations from the Grant County Health Department, the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, and the Center for Disease Control. Specific guidelines can be included in the motion. I would rely on what Luke has already expressed in this meeting and Adam, and add that to my motion. And in terms of how the actual activities would be handled and which activities would be included.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion for the resumption of recreational programming as described with soccer and tennis and softball and pickleball and volleyball, I believe. I believe that was it. July 1? Is that what you said, Eileen?
Yes.
July 1. Okay.
Excuse me, Luke, is that the start date you anticipate? I know you said you have to get registrations.
Yeah, so each program is going to have its own individual start date, but as long as I think the council motion is fine the way it is, it'll allow us to resume in July, starting with the first potentially, but more than likely programs will be delayed until their normal, date of start.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion then and a second. Eileen and Candace, did we get a second?
I second.
Yep, Jason seconded. Okay, Candace will vote.
Gillian,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Ganley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Yes.
Doss.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, by the way, during this time, for those in attendance, if you want to speak on any of these, you're going to have to raise your hand because there's just, now we have like 38 people in here and I can't see all of you. And so if you want to speak in favor or against something, please raise your hand. And Jeremy, welcome to the meeting. Sorry, I didn't admit you right away. It's hard to keep track. Okay. Second thing we want to talk about is shelters. So Luke and Adam.
Sure. So next topic is the playground, sports facilities, and shelters. Essentially, at the last meeting, it was fairly unanimous that those would open. And I guess through a lack of action, we did open those with the noted signs put in place. So we created about exactly 25, 24 by 18 yard signs to place around our various playgrounds, sports facilities, parks, shelters, noting some of the guidelines that the CDC health departments are recommending. I borrowed heavily from the National Park Service for those signs, and several of our surrounding communities asked if they could borrow our signage, and we were happy to share that with them. So they've been at least well received from our peers. I guess unless there's changes, our intention is to leave those facilities open for public use. while encouraging social distancing, hand washing, and things like that.
So this is playgrounds and sports facilities and outside shelters?
Outside shelters, correct.
Outside shelters, okay. Kathy, you had a question.
No.
Oh, you didn't have a question about playgrounds? Okay. Isaac, comments, questions, or concerns?
None.
Jason?
No.
Eileen?
No questions.
Robin?
No questions.
Kathy, we already came by you. No questions, right?
Yes.
Okay. Ken?
No question.
Okay. We haven't any questions on playgrounds. Actually, sports facilities and shelters. Those are actually open, right, Luke?
They are, yeah. I don't think you necessarily would need to take action other than if you want to clarify your position on it.
I think you may have to, because in the agenda it says to remain open.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, Isaac, do I hear a motion?
Yep. I make a motion to allow the playgrounds, sports facilities, and the shelters to remain open based on with proper play safe signage.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Candace will vote.
Killian,
Yes.
Klein,
Yes.
Ganley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Hop,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Doss.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, and the third item, it has to do with proceed with opening the Platteville Family Aquatic Center on Saturday, July 4th, with staff creating new safety guidelines, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure. So I guess the biggest thing that was asked for at the last council meeting was a list of what kind of special restrictions would be in place if we decide to open the Platteville Family Aquatic Center. So I provided a attachment for you, which should be in your packets, just so everyone that doesn't have a packet can review what we're proposing or what we're thinking. I'm just going to kind of go through this in a bit of detail. So the capacity, believe it or not, the current capacity of our aquatic center is 763 people, which if you've ever been to our pool would be absolutely crazy. I've always been told that you'll never reach that because people would be so uncomfortable, they wouldn't go there. But with that in mind, we are proposing reducing that capacity to 100 patrons to start with phase one. That is based on the 113 square feet, which is a 6-foot radius around any individual that would be in that pool, assuming all those individuals are in the water at the time, which quite honestly would be our goal. We want to try to, if you are taking up one of the spots at our pool, we would prefer that you're actively swimming, not grabbing a bite to eat, not just using it as your place to hang out or sunbathe, asking that you perhaps let someone else take that spot instead of being there for those purposes. Hours, we're proposing that we would have a closure of our pool between 4:50 and 6:15 p.m. daily, which would include weekends. We do run swimming lessons during that time during our weekdays, but during the weekends, this would represent a change. And the reason for that, it will allow all of our guards to break at that time. And perhaps more importantly, it would allow us to take in a second group, perhaps a group that might have parents or guardians that are working, and then would be able to come to the facility and have a chance at, one of our limited occupancy spots. I did note in there though that we would continue to analyze that, and based on demand, there may be the need to create additional sessions. So we may have to reduce and have 2-hour sessions at a time, and then essentially clear the pool, allowing a new group in, noting that we could stamp hands and allow individuals to return, but not allowing them to return before new people have a chance to enter the facility at that point. Then I kind of walk you through each aspect of the pool and what changes will be in place at each station, starting with the front desk. having social distance markings on the ground so that while people are waiting in line, there's a visual reminder of what distance needs to be kept. Splitting up our entrance between the southern door and the northern door. We have 4 doors to our facility, just so we have more social distancing. People don't have to be as close passing through a single door. Play safe signage placed at the entrance, just so everyone is familiar with the new regulations that will be in place. And essentially by choosing to come into the facility, you are agreeing to those additional rules. If you're not going to follow it, you'll be asked to leave and free up a spot for someone else. We'll put up a plexiglass barrier. Money will not be exchanged to the hand, be placed on the counter. I noted that front desk staff will be provided with masks. And if needed, I do think we would have the ability to create a patron sign-in sheet. Although I think that does create some complications, of course, but it is something that would be possible. We'd run it similar to how we ran absentee voting with disinfecting pens in between uses. Once we get into the locker rooms, I guess first and foremost, we would ask that most people choose to change at home and not changing in our locker rooms. But if those wishing to change, we will have ground markings for them to properly social distance. And then we would increase our cleaning frequency of that common area. Within the pool deck, once again, we'll have social distance markings. The concession stand will not be open. I did talk to the concession stand operator, and he is in agreement with that decision. And then deck chairs, to start out with, would not be placed out. Individuals would be welcome to bring their own chairs. However, again, we want to encourage active swimming. So if you're just intending to be taking up a spot, not actively watching your kids, not, I guess it's not going to be the facility to just sunbathe, especially when we have people waiting to get into the facility. The sand area would be closed for the entire summer. That is normally an area we do have staffed. We normally have one of our recreation attendants in that position. And that attendant would be shifted to help enforce social distancing and help increase our cleaning frequency. And once again, we want to have active swimmers, another reason that is closed. The slide, to start out with, social distance markings near the top of the slide while people are waiting. And just noting that that slide would be another area we could close. So depending on how our patrons are reacting to the new rules that day, we may have to close the slide and pull 2 additional staff members that are needed to staff that area and use those to help enforce social distancing. So that would be just another option of how we could reduce our normal staff to allow more enforcement. Diving board, simply noting that social distancing markings placed on the ground. Lap swimming, based on the CDC's recommendation, is still 1 person per lap lane. I am going to note that I do believe our lap swimmers are fairly regimented, and that would be an area where we would consider taking reservations right away to allow people to sign up for a half hour or even perhaps an hour-long session of lap swimming, though I think most would be okay with just a half hour, but we'll adjust that based on demand. And then just a few other notes. We have already stopped taking season pass sales. We intend to operate the facility on a pay-as-you-go day pass basis. One of the main reasons for that is we don't want to be issuing passes and then having to turn those people away feeling like they're not getting their full value out of them. I'm noting that we do have a community resource officer that was approved earlier this year. And in talking with Doug already, we do intend to have the community resource officer up at the pool to help with enforcement and just to make connections with those that are using the facility. Noting that their on-duty lifeguards will not be assigned any additional responsibilities. So our on-duty lifeguards are not going to be the ones enforcing social distancing. They're there to watch our swimmers and make sure no one is drowning. So they will not be assigned any additional responsibilities. Patrons will be asked to stay 6 feet away from staff members. Again, all staff members will be allowed to, or provided masks if they want to wear them. However, being out in the sun, I'm not sure many of our guards will want to have that, unique tan line caused by a mask from spending hours in the sun. So we are simply going to ask that our patrons respect their distance and remain 6 feet away from them at all times. During a save, I'm noting though that our guards will be instructed that social distancing at that point does of course go out the window, and we are going to be choosing life over limb, going in, getting them out as quickly as possible. We do have a supply of hand sanitizer, although Ryan is working on alternatives as well. So we have both a non-sticky spray for surfaces and also a hand sanitizer that staff can use. And then this is something that's a little bit difficult, but with contact tracing, we do know that if someone was sick there, that could jeopardize everyone that was working that day. And because our staff are sharing some common areas, we're going to attempt to have an A-list staff and a B-list staff so that there's less contact between those individuals, and a confirmed case at the pool wouldn't necessarily close us for the rest of the season. Again, these are just some guidelines that we have in place if we decide to open, just some of the safety precautions that are in place. The only other, I would note that, there's obviously precedent for whichever way the council decides to go here. There's several pools that have decided to close. There's a few pools that are open already, not ready, but opening soon. I hope that everyone in the audience and in the community realizes this is not an easy decision for you, for us, and knows that no one really wants the pool to close. It's just kind of deciding what level of risk we feel is acceptable for Platteville, and also noting that there may be financial concerns as well due to COVID-19. Both with reduced revenues at the pool and, reduced shared revenue expected for perhaps future years that the council may have to consider at this time.
Adam.
Yeah, I think first I want to thank, all the time that obviously Luke and the recreation staff and really all of our staff have spent on this. To piggyback off of Luke's comments, this is not an easy conversation. It's not an easy decision. It's one that obviously I think both Luke and I have lost sleep over trying to figure this out. And I think it comes down to, just like Luke said, I'll put it this way, as the new city manager, one of the drawing points to coming to Platteville was when I have 3 young kids and they saw that aquatic center. So I don't think there's any question that, my 3 young kids want to go there. Unfortunately, COVID-19 continues to change the landscape, and everyone has seen more and more precaution is being taken when it comes to events, activities, and et cetera. And I think, as we have discussed, the city of Platteville doesn't have a public health department. So therefore, we defer our expertise to the county and state level. So, looking at this morning, the Wisconsin Department of Health Services on their website currently recommends all public pools, splash pads, water parks remain closed due to the spread of COVID-19. That also has been echoed very much by, the Grant County Health Department. But, the other thing to consider, and that a lot of municipalities talked about today on the call I was on, is that that's a recommendation, and all decisions about implementation and operations are up to the individual municipalities. And as I think everybody has seen, whether you've been on social media or the news, COVID-19 has become a pretty divided topic of opinions. There are obviously people that want to take every precaution imaginable, and there are those that are willing to take the risk. Obviously, as staff, and I think, as council members, I think you've seen from emails and probably in conversations, it runs the gamut. There are people that I have talked to either in conversation or in email that are very concerned with what would happen with, mass gatherings and opening the pool. There are other people that I have talked with that want the ability to have the choice to make the decision on their own. We've obviously received emails of support for the pool, and we've even received one, silent donor that has indicated they would be interested in supplying some form of support potentially to the pool if it were to open. So obviously at the end of the day, our job as staff is to provide you as council members with as much information as possible to feel you can make an informed decision. So the decision, obviously, that's being discussed tonight, really, as Luke kind of hit it on the head, it's regarding risk. The number one factor in this decision is how much risk should the city of Platteville take regarding the Platteville Aquatic Center. So really, there's two options to consider on the table this evening, and one is either we flat out close, the Aquatic Center is closed for the year, or it's opened under the restrictions that Luke presented. So kind of reviewing those scenarios, if you talk about closing the pool, what's the reason to do that? Well, first and foremost, you'd be following the recommendations of the Wisconsin Department of Health Services and Grand County Health Department. The risk factor is zero. There is no risk because you're not opening the facility. So there is zero chance, if you don't have that pool open, that somebody is going to get affected at the pool. And the headline then is you have closed the pool, and any answer that staff or council or the city responds with is we closed it because we took every precaution necessary, and maybe it's over precaution, and that's a rightful opinion to have, but it's a safer conversation, is we want to ensure we don't want to take the risk. Yes, there is a financial savings, but that really isn't something, I think that could be debated back and forth. I'll give you the devil's advocate on opening the pool and that one in a second. And the biggest thing is you're not going to, the city of Platteville would not be alone. As of today, there's 43 municipalities that have essentially closed their pool for 2020. Some of the local ones are Darlington, Fenimore, Baraboo's closed theirs. Some larger scale ones are Sun Prairie, Monona, Oshkosh, La Crosse, Appleton. There's a pretty comprehensive list. So then to consider, the other side of the coin, well, what happens if we open the pool? Well, if we open the pool, we're going to follow the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation's recommendations, and that's exactly what Luke and the staff have done. They created a plan based on the CDC, the DHS, and the Grand County guidelines of what you should be doing to try to make it as safe as possible. By opening the pool, kind of as Luke said, it puts the decision on the community. If we as a community can't handle this, then we're going to have to close that pool. There's no other way about it. A lot of the conversation I've heard from individuals I've talked with is, at what point do we start, reopening or looking at reopening plans? And again, it comes down to risk. I do feel that Luke and the staff have put a plan together, which is thought out and will keep people as safe as possible. As he said, if they're not following the rules, then they're going to be kicked out. End of discussion. We're going to have a community service officer there to try to assist. But that's the end result is if they can't, we will do everything we can. The end result for the pool, I think we've all discussed this. It's a service to our community. Cost really shouldn't be a factor. We know the pool is not a revenue generator. It is definitely it's a mental health service. It allows people to go there, take time out of their day to relax, unwind, enjoy summer. It gives families and children somewhere to go. It provides them a cooling mechanism. It's an opportunity for businesses as well. People go to the pool, they spend a day in Platteville, or, they go to the pool and they go get ice cream, they go get something to eat. I think the biggest thing with opening the pool, obviously, is the risk. And that's the factor that it's always going to be unknown. We could open the pool and absolutely nothing could happen. Everybody could go there. It runs smoothly. We have no issues. The other scenario is COVID-19 is a real thing. So there is the potential that somebody could get infected. And if they do, that infection runs the gamut. It could be as simple as they have very little symptoms to what you've seen in the papers this is a fatal virus. Which then would result in the pool having to be closed anyway. So I think, the issue is the headline could vary and have an impact on the future. Staff's recommendation is if the decision is to open the pool, we would want to ensure that we get in front of that headline as much as possible in working with the Telegraph Herald and obviously the Platteville Journal. And just like you said, over informing the rules, the regulations, and really informing, to be cautious and be safe if the pool is open. This is obviously a decision which it's a difficult discussion. If someone gets infected, the city's going to hear about it. It's going to be a headline. Litigation, as far as that did come up today. we did get assurance that we would still, our insurance would be covered in case somebody would get COVID-19. Recreational immunity still does apply, even though there is the recommendations from, you know, the health department that you shouldn't do it. On the league call today, they did indicate the Wisconsin Park Recreation president said that she worked with her, you know, insurance companies, the League of Municipalities Insurance, and they did issue a statement saying that yes, you would still have insurance, that doesn't go away, as long as you're, again, being overly cautious. And just as Luke said, there are municipalities that are going in this direction. There are about 20 municipalities that I looked at today that are either opening, that will be opening their pool eventually in the future. So Wisconsin Rapids is an example. They're opening June 29th. The city of Jefferson opened June 11th. Burlington is June 13th. Middleton is June 8th. Mount Horeb, Cudahy. So there are quite a few. Cassville, I think, is the most recent one in our area that, as of yesterday, made the decision they are opening their pool. And all of those municipalities, in the research I was able to find, specifically with Middleton and with Prairie du Chien, are opening the pool under a very similar process that Luke has essentially proposed. So again, I mean, the safe recommendation, obviously, after weighing the two, is if we want to ensure that we have zero risk, that answer is pretty obvious. The answer then is to close the pool. That is going to be the 100% answer that is going to, you know, have the zero amount of risk. But we're also seen as a driving force for many communities in Grant County. And, you know, we do have the opportunity to showcase, if we do open the pool, we'll do it, and we'll do it with the, you know, restrictions that we need to put in place to ensure that it's safe. And if that's the direction that the council wants to move in, you know, you have our assurance from staff that we will do everything we can to keep it as safe as possible.
Okay, folks, I'm going to start with a once around, and what I'd like you to comment on is the plan, I guess, that Luke laid out. There was a one-page plan that dealt with capacity, hours, front desk, locker room, pool deck, sand area, slide, diving board, lap, swimming, and other. So if you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, any suggestions relative to any of those areas, I guess that would be the first explanation. We'll go from there. After that, I will ask people in the audience who want to raise their hand to do so, and then they can weigh in. And then after that, we'll do a once around one more time. So Isaac, in terms of all the stuff that Luke has laid out, any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, additions, subtractions?
Nope, I think Luke's laid out a pretty good point, and the staff have laid out a good plan, and I think it'd be a good one to follow.
Jason.
The one thing that I was thinking about, and I don't know if this was discussed or brought up, was, you know, in terms of risk management, limiting like who can come and use the pool. Like, you know, would it be better to kind of limit it to Platteville residents around it, you know, kind of more of the town of Platteville, versus, you know, having other people come in from other communities and that potentially being a risk factor? Was there any discussion around that at all?
So this would be a kind of limitation to Platteville School District.
Yeah.
So that did come up today on the League of Municipalities call. And I guess the best way to answer it, Jason, there's a little bit of gray area there as far as, does that open you up to legality? And the question that came up was, if it has not been our standard practice that the city has put that limitation on recreational programming, it's not a guarantee that it makes our recreational immunity a little bit more questionable, but that concern came up on the call, is that typically the majority of municipalities, it's been mixed. The majority that I've seen have not gone down that road. There's a couple that have, and it's because there is a little bit of a question mark, as if you have never put that specific stipulation on your recreational programming, there's some question about how that would be perceived if there would be a legal challenge.
The only other thing I might add to that is it's certainly something that I've thought about. It's more of a practicality issue with me as well, in that at what point am I creating an increased burden upon our residents by needing to, in advance, perhaps go get a pool pass that doesn't get you into the pool per se, but proves you're a Platteville resident, or, just what burden, what do we use to determine that is one of the reasons I initially left it off my plan. With that said, if that's something that the council desires, we would find a way to implement it.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Eileen, questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, whatever.
I assume this is already done anyway, Luke, but if you have a patron come to use the pool and they're, in this case especially, flouting the rules, just will not cooperate, I assume we have the right to tell that individual or individuals that they are not allowed to come back. Is that correct?
We do. We work through the PD with a no trespassing order that is issued to that individual. Don't have to use it a lot, but it has had to be used in the past for, when there's times when staff are physically in danger, particularly from an individual.
Okay. No questions.
Robin.
I brought this up a little bit last time and I don't see it addressed anywhere here, but is there a different policy that addresses if a participant is ill? Because there's not any suggestion here that you'll be taking temperatures or what symptoms would dismiss them from participating.
Yeah, I think that should probably be addressed in terms of, and I don't know, right now I don't have a temperature sensor. I've heard mixed things about how accurate they are in terms of, forehead scanners, especially when people start getting into the sun and have sunburn. I've heard that can really throw them off. But I do think it would be within our guidelines that if you are sick or ill, that you refrain from using our facilities. And I would note that's also in place for our recreational programming as well. I don't think I mentioned that, but that would be one of those rules in place for those programs as well.
Luke, does the play safe poster say if you're ill, if you have a temperature, if you're whatever, then you should not be on this equipment?
It does, yes.
So the play safe poster in some way identifies that. Okay, Robin, any other questions, comments, suggestions?
Nope, I'm good.
Kathy.
I had the same question as Robin about the possibility of taking temperatures, but Luke, you explained that probably would be very difficult. I saw a note that when the Village of Cassville approved opening their pool, that one of the criteria was people had to sign a waiver. Now, I don't know, I didn't have the time to go check to see what was in that waiver, but would there be value to producing just something that people would have to acknowledge that I'm going to follow the rules and I am not sick, or does that get into more legal stuff?
Do you want me to, I'm sorry, I saw you're about to talk as well. So I think we're on the same page, but generally, it's something we can do. Waivers typically just reduce your likelihood of someone suing you. They generally don't hold any legal clout. But as people sign them, they're more conscious that they're accepting some risk and then therefore less likely to sue you. If we were to do contact tracing, where we had people sign into the facility, I would anticipate at the top of that form, we would have a general liability statement. But again, I go back and forth there because, I believe just in having someone touch that same, we're inserting another touch point for people that they are mandated to visit. So I have mixed feelings about it. I think we could do it, as safe as possible, have a bunch of pens, have a dirty bin, have a clean bin, swap them out, after we disinfect them. So I think there's a way to do it, but, it's still an additional point where people have to gather.
Okay. Sure. Okay.
Ken, comments, questions, suggestions?
What anticipated number of people using the pool? Eliminating what days? Give us a guess.
Are you asking about our traditional occupancy or traditional?
Oh, what's your occupancy going to be? Expected occupancy. What do you anticipate? Numbers.
Sure. I would anticipate on most days we will exceed our capacity on most days that are sunny. Traditionally, we've had especially in July, it's rare that we don't have over 200 people at the Aquatic Center in a day. We've had last year as many as I think 580 was our peak day. So I would anticipate, some people are simply not comfortable. I know there's many families that are not comfortable going out regardless of what your decision is today. They will not be taking their families to the Aquatic Center. I don't know quite what percentage that is, but on a nice day, I anticipate us being at capacity at 100.
And there'll be no, you'll have a record of the people coming in, but there'll be no testing after they leave, or no testing whatsoever. I think I asked Adam that last time.
Okay, so Ken wants to know, and I guess I believe also, if required, and I think it should be required, that there be a sign-in sheet. I think it would be impossible to do any contact tracing if there weren't a sign-in sheet. So, I mean, I don't know how you do that, but I really think that a sign-in sheet would be a minimal thing. And I think Ken is trying to say that too.
Well, my question for Adam is, are any of these other places that are opening, are they doing any testing of people that are coming in?
From what I have seen, no, they are not. They are doing exactly as you as kind of Barb indicated, is they are having them fill out either a risk waiver or putting down their information so that in the event that there would be a positive test that would be identified, they then would have the contact tracing kind of already in place to look at, going back and contacting all of those people that were on that list that day.
Thank you.
And as far as that goes, I don't know why we wouldn't create some kind of online or some kind of PDF that families could fill out in advance. And so if I'm bringing my 3 kids on Tuesday the 4th or whatever it is, I just bring my 3. I mean, it's very interesting now. State parks, you buy a sticker online. You can't buy a sticker there. Something says to me that, we could have some system that, I mean, I understand it may be a pain, but it might be easier to have each person fill out a form and keep that for that day instead of one big long sheet. So I would really think that would be something. Ken, any other questions?
Oh.
Okay, I understand that that based on 113 feet squared per person and a 6-foot radius, that it's 100 patrons. But isn't the Wisconsin bounce back plan, doesn't it start with 10 and then 50 and then more? So how did we, why is it 100 instead of 50, since if we're following the bounce back plan?
Sure. So within this guideline sheet for amusements, which is part of the Wisconsin bounce back plan, it kind of clarifies that. So, 10 persons in a group is what they allow. When you have a larger facility though, they don't necessarily consider that, you know, everyone in that facility is within one group. So like if we had a picnic table or you know, one of our canopies, they would want to enforce not having 10 people, you know, within one of those canopies at the pool. That we'd want to keep those people distanced. But my understanding is that that's not for the entire facility itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think to add on to that a little bit, what people have kind of seen or what they have been taking a page out of as well is the Dane County that created, you know, when essentially the Safer at Home order was overturned and Dane County kind of came down with their own rules and regulations. What they have proposed is a mandated 25% pool capacity for the most part. So that's where a lot of people took the page out of. I think Middleton was the first one to kind of come up with a comprehensive pool plan, and theirs was 25%. We obviously went, I think, even a bit more restrictive, so we're at 13% or 100. So we tried to look at, again, you know, with our pioneering through COVID-19, it's this difficult matter of trying to kind of take three different mindsets of the DHS, Grant County, CDC, and everything else we're seeing and put it into one package. So there's no right or wrong answer. I think we just took something kind of looking at everything and averaged it out, and that's where we felt 100 was a kind of acceptable number based on what we saw out of the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation's guidelines, which is a direct kind of descendant of the Badger Bounce Back.
Okay, I have another question. In your other, it says our new community resource officer will be available to assist. Does that mean that the new community resource officer will be on site to assist? Or what does that mean? Help me explain explain to me what that means.
Yeah, so our intention behind that is that officer we would like to have there as much as possible. Obviously, there may be times where, depending on, you know, shifting or what's going on in the day, they may not be able to be there 100%, but our hope in talking with kind of the chief and in Luke is that our intention would be when that officer is available, we would try to have him at the pool, he or she at the pool as much as possible.
Okay. And then Luke, you said something about picnic tables. You said deck chairs won't be put out. I'm assuming there won't be picnic tables either.
That's correct. I was just using it as an example of a gathering point.
Okay, so basically within the structure of the pool, there will be no chairs unless you bring your own.
To start out with, yes.
Help me understand to start out with.
I would say if the conditions change, such as we were enter phase 2 of the bounce back program, we may consider that, or if we weren't seeing, we weren't reaching capacity and we were able to provide that as a service with chairs properly spaced out, it's something I think we could consider in the future.
Okay, and I don't know, I've heard at least 3 council members talk about a sign-in sheet. So, as a requirement, and Kathy talking about not only a sign-in sheet, but even maybe perhaps including some waiver language. All right, I had suggested that the next thing I would do would be to look to any hands that might have been raised. And at this point in time, I haven't seen any hands raised who want to speak on this. So I will ask again, if you have a desire to speak on the Family Aquatic Center, please raise your hand or put something in the chat feature. I mean, there are a lot of people here. I don't know if you. I guess I should probably give people a minute or two. Raise your hand or put something in the chat feature if you can't figure out how to raise your hand. Because I sometimes.
I don't know if council members have any different features, but I can't figure out how to raise your hand. Does anybody see, like, can we explain how to do that?
I have raised my hand before, and I can't remember how I did it.
On my,
right underneath,
on mine,
right
I'm on
underneath
an
the participant,
iPad.
you just.
Oh, sorry. I'm on an iPad right now, and I have the option of, there's 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner that says more. And then when it drops down, there's an option on that drop-down menu that says raise hand. That's at least for what I have on my iPad.
Right.
Same.
Yeah, I don't see anything like that on mine.
Robin, if you go to the participants,
I click
and
it.
then underneath,
Okay. Okay, thank you. All right, so actually click on the participant list and then it's an option within there. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I see nobody raising their hand. So it appears a lot of people wanted to listen, but nobody wanted to speak.
I see one for Laura.
oh, you got it.
Oh, there we go, Laura. All right, unmute, Laura.
It's actually Ben, but
Oh, Ben.
Our family is definitely in support of opening the pool. It's something we definitely would like to see this summer. So
Thank you, Ben.
thank you.
Any other hands? That's the only hand I see yet. And is there consensus around that the front desk, the if required, is taken out and it is a sign-in sheet or some kind of registration? In other words, it is required, not if required.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, folks, what's your pleasure?
I'd make a motion on C to proceed with the opening of the Platteville Family Aquatic Center on Saturday, July 4th, with the staff creating new safety guidelines based on the recommendations from the Grant County Health Department, the Wisconsin Department of Health Services, and the Center for Disease Control. Specific guidelines can be included in the motion here based on the council discussion, and we've already went through them.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a motion and a second. Okay, folks, we'll vote.
Killian,
No.
Klein,
Yes.
Shanley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Doss.
No.
Motion carries.
Okay, well, good. All right. We will now move on to, that's our last action item on this agenda. So we'll now move on to the Fire Department Comprehensive Study. And so Adam and Ryan, I think.
So,
and are any of your other team members? Nicola is here. Is any other team member here?
Jason was on the team as well. So.
Jason. Oh, Jason. Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll lead this one off. So obviously the last time we talked about this, the decision or kind of the recommendation approval we got from the council was to form a fire department comprehensive subcommittee that had Bill Closter and Deb Rice on there. Jason Arntz obviously is the council rep, Chief Simmons, myself, Nicola, and then Mike Delecky as the Platteville Police and Fire Commission president. So you all should have received the PDF version. Colette sent that out, and then Ken, I think we had a copy mailed to you so that you could get those as well. But the committee essentially met last week, June 2nd and June 4th. And what they did is they kind of went through, we did 3 a day and looked at kind of each proposal and in regard and kind of weighed them respectively. And the consensus that essentially came out of that discussion was at this time, the recommendation that committee would make is the proposal they felt met the needs of what we were looking for as far as cost and as far as what met kind of the guidelines was the combination proposal of Public Administration Associates and 5 Bugle Designs. So what the committee has done is we have actually set up a call tomorrow afternoon with that group to meet them and further vet the recommendation that the committee essentially wanted to talk about. So they are going to be meeting tomorrow and kind of formally asking some questions that they had. But just to kind of give you kind of the brief synopsis out of all of kind of the different groups, the reason they kind of excluded some of the other ones was primarily based on some of them were cost decisions. They just felt that the cost of the proposals didn't meet what we were looking for. One of the big things that the committee looked at was the ability to have a physical presence. And I know that's difficult in COVID-19, but that was also taken into consideration was some of these firms were obviously, from very far away states. So there was some concern about how much they would actually be able to come to, Platteville, as well as, one of the things they also really addressed was looking for direct Wisconsin-based experience. So that obviously is some of the reasons that PAA got recommended or kind of moved to the top of the list. One of the firms the group felt didn't do a very good job of meeting the requirements that were put into the RFP. They kind of took their own version and tweaked it a little bit.
Who was that?
That was the McGrath Consulting Group. And they're a very good group. It is one that WCMA has worked with in the past, but they have a very specific, and that was one of the things the group talked about. They have a very specific, like 16-point kind of program that they do. And they tried to basically mold that into our requirements. And the general synopsis from the committee was that they just didn't feel that it met what we were looking for. The FEH design, they thought potentially could be a group that could be brought in for the architectural design later on, but they felt they didn't really like the proposal that was presented. And then Barry Dunn, they felt was their experience, they didn't have any direct Wisconsin experience, and their experience and kind of expertise was more police focused than fire. So that's where, after kind of weighing all of them, the general kind of, I guess, push kept going back to PAA and this combination of 5 Bugle Designs that the firm really liked. And I guess I'll let Jason and Nicola kind of add anything if they thought I missed anything or what their thoughts were.
Adam, do you remember which one also was more EMS focused? Because I thought there was one that was like, more EMS focused too, not so much fire department.
Yeah, that was the Barry Dunn proposal, Jason. That was
okay.
They had a very heavy police and kind of EMS.
Okay.
That was kind of my thought when I looked through. It was like, we really don't need an EMS study.
Nope.
Right. Where is 5 Bugles Design headquartered? I know where PAA is headquartered.
Good question.
I mean, we talked about local, but are they local or Wisconsin? I don't think I could see that in the proposal. Maybe somebody else read it and saw it.
They're more from the east, Oshkosh.
Oh, 5 Bugles is from Oshkosh?
Well, that's my memory of it. They've been here to Platteville 5 times.
5 Bugles has?
Well,
no, PAA has.
That company.
Yeah, PAA has, but I'm not sure about 5 Bugles Design.
Yeah, I think that was one of the questions that's going to be asked tomorrow is some of their, direct, where are they from? Because I think that question came up too.
5 Bugles, a new addition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 5 Bugles is, and PAA is now based out of Whitewater, not Oshkosh.
Well, it's close.
Yep, close.
I didn't say Milwaukee.
I thought the FEH tie to Platteville was interesting.
Yes, they built over at Lancaster.
Well, and they referenced a Carmen who was fire chief and other things, FEH did.
I have a source telling me 5 Bugles is out of Eau Claire.
Okay. I think Ryan must have looked that up quick. Not you, huh? Okay. All right, people, questions. Jason, oh, well, you were on this. Anything else you
Yeah.
want to add?
Nothing at this time, no.
Okay, Eileen, any questions on this process?
No, be interested in seeing what they learn tomorrow.
Okay. Isaac, any questions?
Just waiting to see what they learn tomorrow.
Kathy,
No questions right now.
Robin,
No questions right now.
Ken, think of.
No questions. As I said before, they've been here a number of times.
Okay.
And my second choice was, what do they call it? FEH.
Yep. Ryan, do you have anything you want to add?
I don't think so. I think the others touched on everything, and hopefully after the call tomorrow, we can kind of close up any questions that the group has.
Okay. Nicola?
No, nothing for me.
Okay. So would we then be comfortable moving this to an action item based on the recommendation of the committee and the additional information that they bring forward the next time?
Yes.
I'm comfortable doing that, moving it to an action item. Okay. All right. I think that was the only, now I've lost my agenda, of course. I don't know how my gets so messy. Yeah, I think that's it. We do have a closed session scheduled. Now remember, folks, we're going to end this session and then you have to re-log in on another session that Jody sent. So we would adjourn, and when we come out of closed session, we're going to confer with legal counsel. And when we come out of closed session, we will be coming out of closed session and adjourning at the same time. There won't be a return to an open meeting and any action. Right? Adam?
Yeah, we'll have to confer with legal counsel about that because that's going to be a good question, is how we handle that.
Well, we're not going to return to
We're not gonna return to
open
this.
session tonight.
Right. So if there is something, we'll have to let Candace know if there is any action that comes out of that discussion.
Yeah. Okay. So, folks, I could take a motion to move to closed session per Wisconsin State Statute 1985, Parent 1, Parent G, to render written or oral advice concerning a strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or is likely to become involved, and we will be conferring with legal counsel. So do I have a motion?
I so move.
Okay.
Second.
And a second? A second. Okay, we have a motion by Ken and a second by Eileen to move into closed session. Candace will vote.
Killian,
Yes.
Klein,
Am I on mute? I say yes.
Stanley,
Yes.
Nichols,
Yes.
Cop,
Yes.
Arts,
Yes.
Doss.
Yes.
Motion carries.
And folks, before everybody leaves, I apologize that we had some hijackers tonight. We will get better at identifying that and taking care of it. But thanks for bearing with us. I felt a little bad for Mr. Raymer as he tried to make his presentation. So,
Hey,
all
Barb,
right, guys.
there's something quick that I want to mention too before we go to closed session.
Okay.
I just wanted to take a quick minute and recognize the community members and the businesses in Platteville for all of their hard work recently, organizing protests, events to bring the community together. Just wanted to make sure that everyone was recognized in the work that they've been doing. And there will be another event Sunday, this Sunday from 1 to 6, I believe, in Smith Park. So
Smith Park.
thanks.
And I do believe I sent that to all the council members last week one day, and I will remember to repeat that. So thank you. Jason for making that. And now we will leave this meeting and we'll reconvene in closed session.